Okay, welcome back. In the last video, we finished learning how to get user input. In this part, we are going to focus on the ability to create and save programs to run later. Let us get to it. Till this point, we have been writing code in the REPL or the Python shell. I keep using the word REPL for the Python shell. This is actually an acronym. It stands for read or read reads the command you enter, evaluate, E for evaluate, evaluates or understands and executes the command, P for print, prints the output if any to the console, and L for loop, loops back and repeats the process. REPL, REPL, right? Apart from Python, there are many other languages like Ruby, Java also provide REPL based environments so that you can quickly try out things and learn stuff. But there are problems with continuing our learning with the REPL. In the REPL, whatever you type is present only in the REPL. Outside it, we cannot use or see the code or even see the code. Also, if you're trying to do something which needs multiple lines of code and want to use it again and again, it's not easy to do that with the REPL. I want to create programs so that we can store them somewhere and run them later whenever you want. So let us get to it. Typically, many Python teachers use something called idle for writing, storing and executing Python code as files. Idle is short for Integrated Development and Learning Environment, and it comes with a Python installation. It is an IDE included with Python. What is an IDE? Integrated Development Environment. It's a special program which allows us to enter program code. In our case, Python code, execute it and debug it. Some of the interesting features an IDE offers are syntax highlighting. It shows various parts of our code in different colors. Context sensitive help. It will show you relevant information and documentation and the context of what you are typing in. Code completion. It will complete some code for you. Debugging. Help you find mistakes, right? You may not understand them as of now. That's okay. I will demonstrate these to you as we move forward. As for me, I am going to take a different approach. I am going to download a good code editor which can be extended to provide Python support. The reason is code editors are lightweight. That's another way of saying smaller and faster programs. And code editors are also general purpose. Today you might use the editor for learning Python. Tomorrow you might want to do some JavaScript or HTML for your site. A good editor will support all these use cases and more. I will use an editor to create the programs, and for executing them I will use the terminal. There are multiple ways of creating programs. I tend to use this because it is simple to set up and keeps my system faster. You can start the same way as me. As you move forward in the journey as a developer, you might decide a different way works better for you. If so, you should go ahead and do that. Let us get back. We are going to use the VS Codium editor. VS Codium is an open source version of the famous VS Code editor. It's a free code editor provided by Microsoft. You may not know what open source is. If so, open your favorite browser and search for the term to understand it. Maybe I will talk about it in a different time, but I think you should search and read about it. Part of being a developer is being inquisitive and being resourceful to find answers. VS Codium can be downloaded from the site. Let us do that. We just search VS Codium. I go here. This is a site. See, I told you, free open source software binaries of VS Code. Okay, so community driven free license binary distribution of the Microsoft's editor VS Code. Let's try to find, install. So it is available for Windows, Mac OS and Linux. Now if you see here, these are downloadable artifacts, right? If I am in, say, Linux, I could use the Debian. If it's Debian based distribution, I can use deb file. If it's an RPM based Linux version, then I can use RPM. If you are on Windows, you will use this exe file, and I will use the disk image file for macOS. You can just click on this and it will ask you to download, right? I will just save this under the downloads folder. So I downloaded it, so I can go to the downloads folder and I find this here. I'll double click it. I will add it into the applications folder. Now that I have downloaded it and installed it, I will go to applications and open VS Codium app. In Windows, it might be in a different folder. Similarly, Linux, it might be in a different place. The first thing to do is go to the extensions. This is extensions. Go here and search for Python. Now, this is the extension we want. It is MS Python. It does debugging, IntelliSense. IntelliSense is another name for code completion or code hinting and highlighting and all that stuff which we talked about, right? So this will do all of that. So let's just go install this. Okay, that's installed. So I'll just close this now and go back to, now I'm going to open a folder. I am just going to go into classes. What you should do is you should find a good location for storing your files, right? So I am just going to create a file called code, and this is where I'm going to store all my files, my Python code, right? I'm going to store it here. Okay. Now, since we have installed that extension, we have converted a simple code editor into a decent IDE. We will now start with VS Codium and figure out how to create our first program. Let's go to I'm already on code. I can just create a file like this, new file, and I'm going to say hello.py. The py extension is important, .py. This is how you tell Python, tell the VS Codium editor that it is a Python file I'm going to write. Always double check this extension, right? So typically VS Codium will show you this icon too. If you use a different extension instead of py, it will not show this. Now let us, by tradition, let us go ahead and print this. You see some of the IntelliSense coming in, right? You can see the different colors. Print is in a different color, hello world is in a different color. It's doing syntax highlighting. Now I save this file. I go file and save, or I can do this, or I can use the shortcut. Here it is Command S. It might be Control S in your operating system. Depending on your platform, do whatever you need to save the file. Then I will switch to my prompt. I have to get out of this place. This is the REPL. I am already in the classes folder. I had created the code folder if you remember. So I'm going to code and I can see hello.py. Now in order to execute this program, I type in Python, and instead of directly hitting enter, which will take me back to the REPL, I will say hello.py. There you go. That is the output. We had put print hello world, and now we executed that program, and it's given us our output. Okay, we did it. We created a file which is a Python program, and we executed it using the Python command. This is a simple step, but it's an important one. This is the exact same thing you will do whether you are creating a 1-line program or a 500-line program or a 5,000-line program. Okay, that might be a little different, but mostly this is what you're going to do when you want to execute Python code. So get very comfortable doing this. Before I complete this video, I want to cover one more aspect. Okay, let's go back to the terminal, or rather go back to VS Codium. I'm going to write this. I'm going to save this. I'm going to use Command S, and then I'm going to again execute arrow keys. Nothing happened. So nothing new happens, and that's expected. This line is called a comment. When I put a hash and I say I am a comment, this is a piece of text which is added inside the program for developers to read. A comment is completely ignored by Python. So when you execute this file, Python just skips the first 2 lines and executes the last line, the print hello world. Comments are an important tool in the developer's toolkit. It allows the developer to provide information or context to other developers who might read the code. Actually, it might provide context to you as a developer when you look at this code after some time. While comments can be useful, overusing them can create noise, which might make it difficult to look at the code itself. One thing which is worse than a lot of comments is a comment which is outdated. That is just a comment which is wrong because the code has changed, but the information provided by the comment is not changed and is not correct. So use comments, but use it right. That concludes this part of the session. Hope you are able to set up the editor and execute this simple Hello World program. In the next part, we will talk about reusing code written by others. As usual, if you have any questions or doubts, please use the comments and I will answer these questions. See you soon.